Good evening. Today is Friday, December 18th, and we're about a month and a half since the election, and incredibly and predictably, the person who sits in the White House still doesn't think he lost. But we're not going to really be discussing that today. It has been a while since I've been on. Been busy and not busy. Taking a rest. Tonight's discussion is on the stimulus package that is 6 months too late. We are still in the midst of 800,000 people becoming unemployed every week. Over 800,000 a week. Normal is about 100,000 or less. That's normal. When it was over 700,000, the last time that happened prior to 2020, it was during the Bush Jr. Obama transition, in the middle of that depression, and we were hitting 700,000 and 800,000 a week. And both presidents were roasted for it during the period of time that was happening. And it was looking like a depression, which it was at that time. There were only a few million people unemployed at that period of time. 10 million. We reached well over 25 million during 2020. The real number will never be figured out because it's nearly impossible. There's something like 50 to 70 million people that have been unemployed during 2020. You're never going to get the exact number, especially from this government. So here we are in December of 2020, and there have been pictures recently, during the last month or two, that have been on YouTube of lines of cars that go for miles, lines of people that go around blocks 17 times, of people waiting for food. It is so much worse than the Great Depression ever was. It's worse now, much worse now than it ever was during the Great Depression. It is about to get much, much worse. Much worse. If the stimulus package that they are presently talking about, which, by the way, the Democrats started to negotiate, which I had mentioned a couple of months ago, this make-believe negotiating, where they were at $3 trillion and the Republicans were at $500 billion. The negotiation has never been honest. Democrats went from $3 trillion plus to $2 trillion plus. Republicans didn't move an inch. Past the election, the Democrats actually went down another. They came down to where the Republicans finally went up to $900 billion. But to help anybody? No, not to help anybody. They're not helping anybody. All of the money just about all of the money is going to be going to corporations. It's not even going to go to the states and the cities and the towns that need it, that normally get that federal money trickles down to. People don't get, and it's not being talked about, that because federal money is not being included in these packages, towns, cities, states, counties, county governments are going to be cutting hospital workers, teachers, people who work on roads, firemen, policemen, first responders, people who all of us need the most to keep our society going. As I always say, it is not a Democratic or a Republican issue. If in the stimulus package, money to states and cities is not included, which it's not, there is going to be a layoff tsunami across this country starting in January or maybe at the end of December. It won't be the fault of the people who are mayors of those towns, cities, or governors of those states, because they don't have the power to create money. Only the federal government does. So that is one issue. For a period of time, the Democrats had that included in the package. But because they don't seem to know how to negotiate, which I pointed out months ago, it is no surprise at all, no surprise at all, that they are not including money for the states and the cities and the towns and the counties. Every single town and city and state gets federal money. Comes through a number of agencies, whether it's grants that go to the police departments for whether it's for equipment or buildings or to fire departments for equipment or different programs for training, whether it's to HUD, through HUD, Housing and Urban Development, for small businesses, women-owned businesses, minority businesses. All of this money is going to have to be made up, guess by who? Local property owners are going to either fork up more money on a local level to replace the federal money, or services are going to be cut and people are going to be laid off. That's one part of this package. That's not going to happen. We're talking about a package, by the way, after more than half a year of nothing. Of the other part of this that's not happening really is stimulus checks. Now, in the first couple of the first package or second package, back in March, April, everybody got, or not everybody, but a huge amount of people had $1,200. And part of the equation was if you had dependents, you would get another $500 or $600. Let's just stick with the 12. Let's make it really easy. Really easy. 1,200. Right now, they're talking about a $900 billion package. And the Democrats, quote unquote, have fought their way up to having the Republicans agree to $600 checks each. A $600 check, which after all of this time of people getting no checks, that $600, the $600 will help for a couple of days. It doesn't solve anybody's problem because people are hungry or they have missed buying their medicine, or they're late on their mortgage or their rent by months on end. Millions of people have already lost their apartment or their home. They're probably numerous months behind on their cars, vehicles, and their water and their electric. So $600, family of 3 or 4, that's food for a couple of weeks. So that's what they're talking about, $600. So let's see what that really means. What does that mean? $600, 150 million checks, $600 each. Let's make it simple. $600 going down to 150 people, 150 million people, all part of families. How much money is that? So how much money is that, really? That's $90 billion. $90 billion that would be paid out to people directly. Now, is that a lot of money? Believe it or not, it's not a lot of money. It's a drop in the bucket when it comes to the United States budget and these bailout packages. 90 billion? That's only 10%. 10%. 10% of the entire package that they're talking about now that they can't come to an agreement on. So let's make this easy again. Now, I've been a banker for 40 years, so I know how to add 1 and 1. Try to make it simple. $90 billion for a $600 check to the people who paid these taxes. This is our money. This is our money. It's not Democratic money, and it's not Republican money. This is our tax money coming back to the people who need it. The Democrats and Republicans in Congress can't agree to it. They can't even agree to $600, which is 10% of this package of only $900 billion, which is insufficient. So let's say they go back. Let's say you and me are sitting in Congress and we have reality. We're dealing with reality. And we actually say, because we've been listening to our neighbors who are losing their jobs and losing their lives to COVID, et cetera, that let's say at a minimum, we'll match what we gave out back in March and make it $1,200 to each of the 150 million people. How much is that? How much is that? Well, that turns out to be 180 billion. That's $180 billion. That's a lot of money now, right? No, it's not a lot of money. Not when you compare it to all of the trillions of dollars that have gone to huge corporations. It's not a lot of money. It's insignificant. The amount of money that has gone out from you and me, Democrat and Republican and independent and everything else, everybody else, has been about 4 to 5 trillion. That's what's gone to large corporations or companies that we don't even know of. But to actually pay back the people who put the money in there to begin with, the Republicans and Democrats can't seem to fight for us. Can't seem to come to an agreement. It's too much money. No issue, none, makes it more clear that about 95% of the Republicans, something like 80% of the Democrats, are corrupt and criminals. Corrupt and criminals. And if you haven't heard it the first 2 times, corrupt and criminals. And again, I'm a lifetime Democrat. And it makes me puke and sick to see people who are sitting in Congress who have a D next to their name and seem to be unwilling and unable to negotiate a package that is sufficient to help people in this country. So if you made it only $1,200 and 180 billion, still not a lot of money. It's 180 billion out of a 900 billion plus package. It's still less than 20% of the package. So if I was sitting in Congress, or you were sitting in Congress, and you and I were sitting there, maybe I would be able to convince you that maybe everybody should be getting $2,000. There should be a $2,000 check. Because, by the way, we know that that money is going to be spent right away and put right back into the economy. It'd be the best thing that ever happened to this economy. Rents would be paid, food would be bought, pharmaceuticals would be bought. People would feel maybe just a little bit better and maybe have just enough to get through until the vaccine, if and when that works or gets out, or hopefully when things calm down with this virus, so that somehow get back to normal society and normal economics. But it seems as though the Republicans and the Democrats just don't know how to work for people. They work for corporations. They're more worried about Boeing and Raytheon than they are about you and me, whether we're in New Jersey, Massachusetts, Nebraska, South Dakota, South Carolina, Texas, New Mexico. It doesn't matter where. Republicans, God, I just can't believe people haven't stormed into their offices yet. And the Democrats, people like Joe Manchin, I don't know how he doesn't think that he should be going to prison along with the rest of them. It's incredible. So 2,000, gee, that sounds like a lot of money. It's so horrible and terrible. $2,000 a check. Again, that money is ours. That's our money. So what does that add up to? What does that add up to? How big is that? Is that a lot of money? If you gave $2,000 to 150 million people, is that a lot of money? No. It's 300 billion bucks. It's $300 billion. That's still less than 1/3 of this stinking $900 billion package they're talking about. It's less than a third. Is it a lot of money? No. They're giving out so much money to corporations of our money, Democratic money and Republican money, to corporations and who knows where else. And somehow that all circles back into their own pockets, of course. Huge amounts of kickbacks you would not believe. How do I know? Like I've said previously, I've worked for a couple of congressmen, and one of those congressmen, unfortunately, was basically kicked out of the Senate for taking a package of money, cash. I had worked on a number of his campaigns. Saw it personally. I ran for a local office, and people tried to bribe me on a local office. So yeah, money is all over the place. Money goes right back into the politician's pocket. That's the payoff. So $2,000 a check still adds up to nothing. It adds up to $300 billion. That's less than a third of this package they're talking about, which is less than a third of what the Democrats originally were going to fight for. Remember, the Democrats said they were going to, Schumer and Pelosi, we're going to fight for $3 trillion. And we're only asking for $300 billion with $2,000 a check. That's all it would come to, $300 billion. It's insignificant money. And yet that money would go right back into the economy, and it would be the best thing that ever happened. So think about that. The Republicans stink. The Democratic Party that I'm a part of my whole life, almost just as corrupt, almost. And they can't get a package. And when they finally do get a package, maybe tonight, tomorrow, maybe a day and a half before Christmas, and they're going to be guaranteed, patting each other on the back. It's going to be front page news. 900 billion, no money to the states, $600 checks. Less than 10% of a stinking $900 billion package. You believe that? If you're a Democrat or Republican, I'm a Democrat, but I'm not going to stand by. I have made probably 100 phone calls to congressmen and senators that are from my state and from other states. The number is 202-224-3121. Look it up on Google. Congressional switchboard number. You can Google it. You pay taxes? Call your congressman, call your senator, call any congressman, call any senator. Call it and tell them that they stink. It's your responsibility as a citizen. Thanks a lot.